example number 1 for our integration of odd and even functions. We have here our problem, 4 pi multiplied by the integral of the quantity b minus x multiplied by the square root of a squared minus x squared dx with the lower limit of negative a and the upper limit of a. So, yung napag-usapan natin regarding with the integral of the odd and even functions, dapat meron tayong lower limit which is negative of the upper limit. So, first thing that we are going to do here is to expand our equation, and we would have so distribute lang natin siya 4 pi, and then this b here ay i-factor out na lang natin since this is constant. Integral of the square root of a squared minus x squared dx with a limit of negative a to positive a. Then minus 4 pi integral of x multiplied by the square root of a squared minus x squared dx with the lower limit of negative a and the upper limit of a. So first thing that we are going to do is to test whether our function is an odd function or an even function. So for the first term, so we have here the function of x is equal to the square root of a squared minus x squared. So the function of f of negative x is equal to the square root of a squared minus negative x squared. So we have here f of negative x is equal to a squared minus x squared. So meaning, since hindi na bago yung function natin and the same lang siya yung f of x sa f of negative x, so therefore f of x is even. So for this second term here, papangalanan natin siyang g of x, and this is equal to x square root of a squared minus x squared. So hindi na natin sinasama tong mga constants, no? So wala naman siyang impact. So we have here g of negative x is equal to negative x multiplied by a squared minus negative x squared. So we have here g of negative x is equal to negative x square root of a squared minus x squared. So makikita natin dito, we have here the g of x, and the g of negative x ay naging negative siya. So meaning, the g of x is an odd function. And kung babalikan natin yung napag-usapan natin dun sa may introduction natin, if we have the even function, so we can express this first term here equal to 4 pi b, the function a squared minus x squared dx. Papalitan na natin itong limit natin. So instead of negative a to positive a, ay magiging 0 to a siya, and we multiply this by 2. While the second term naman, since this is an odd function, ang integral lang nito is just equal to 0. So hindi na natin siya isasama sa computation. So kung isa-simplify natin yung function natin, and we would have here 8 pi b integral of a squared minus x squared dx, limit from 0 to a. So integrate natin to. We integrate this using the trigonometric substitution. So kung makikita natin dito, we have here the a squared minus b squared. So ibig sabihin, we will be using the asin, diba? So x is equal to a sine of theta, and the derivative of x is equal to dx, and the derivative of a sine theta is a cosine theta d theta. So if we are going to substitute this in our equation, so we have here the a squared minus x squared. This would be equal to a squared cosine squared of theta. So substitute natin. We have here our function 8 pi b integral from 0 to a of the square root of, since the a squared minus x squared is a squared cosine squared, so papalitan natin siya ng a squared cosine squared of theta, and the dx here will be replaced by a cosine theta d theta. So we have here 8 pi b integral from 0 to a, and the square root of a squared cosine squared is a cosine theta multiplied by a cosine theta d theta. So we have 8 pi b integral from 0 to a of a squared cosine squared theta d theta. This is equal to, since this a squared here is constant, ay pwede na natin siyang i-factor out. We have here 8 pi a squared b, and from our trigonometric identity, we know that the cosine squared of theta is equal to 1 plus cosine 2 theta over 2. So, i-replace natin itong cosine squared natin by 1 plus cosine 2 theta over 2. So, we have here the integral limit from 0 to a of 1 plus cosine 2 theta over 2 d theta. So, we have 8 pi a squared b, and we have here integral of 0 to a. Kung i-isolate natin to, we would have here 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine 2 theta d theta. So kung i-integrate natin to, we would have here 8 pi a squared b. We have here integral from 0 to a of 1/2 d theta for the first term plus 1/2 integral from 0 to a of cosine 2 theta d theta. Ngayon kung titingnan natin itong second term, since the derivative of 2 theta is 2 d theta, so we multiply 2 here and we multiply 1/2 dito sa labas. So, taking the integral of this, and we have 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2. The integral of d theta is theta plus, we have here 1/4. The integral of cosine 2 theta to d theta is sine 2 theta. Limit from 0 to a. Pero kung babalikan natin yung assumption natin kanina, we have x is equal to a sine of theta. So therefore, the sine of theta is equal to x over a, and the theta is equal to arc sine of x over a. And from here, we construct a triangle. If this is theta, so sine from the SOHCAHTOA, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side is x, the hypotenuse is a. And this side here is the square root of the square of the hypotenuse minus the square of the other side from the Pythagorean theorem. So, balikan natin to. We have here 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2. The theta is equal to arc sine of x over a, so this would be arc sine of x over a, plus 1/4. Since we know from our identity, from our trigonometric identities, that the sine of 2 theta is equal to 2 sine theta cosine theta. So we replace the sine 2 theta here by 2 sine theta cosine theta. So we have 2 sine theta cosine theta. Limit from 0 to a. So simplifying further, and we have here 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2 arc sine of x over a plus 2 times 1/4 is 1/2. The sine of theta is x over a, so this is x over a. Multiply by the cosine theta from the SOHCAHTOA. The cosine is ka, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So we have here the adjacent side, square root of a square minus x square over the hypotenuse a. Limit from 0 to a. We now evaluate, since we know that we have here the f of b minus f of a. So for the upper limit, that's a, and the lower limit is 0. So we have here 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2 arc sine. The x would be a over a plus 1/2. The x would be a times a here, that is a squared, multiplied by the square root of a squared minus the x squared here will be a squared, and this is for the upper limit f of b. For the lower limit f of a, so we have here 8 pi a squared b, and the arc sine of 0 is 0, and if this x here will be 0, so this term will be 0, so meaning this is equal to 0. So simplifying, we have here 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2 arc sine of 1 plus, for the second term, since we have here a squared minus a squared, that would be 0, so meaning the second term will be equal to 0, and since this is equal to 0, so wala na siya. We have here 8 pi a squared b multiplied by 1/2 for the arc sine 1, so kumpitin natin yung arc sine 1, and dadalhin natin sa radian mode, so that is shift solve radian as 4. Arc sine of 1 so shift sine of 1, and we have here 1/2 of pi, or pi over 2. So we have here the arc sine of 1 is pi over 2. So simplifying this, we have 2 times 2 is 4, so 8 divided by 4 is 2. We have pi multiplied by pi is pi squared, a squared here times b, and this is our answer.